This is the story of Jack Callahan, a 64-year-old U.S. Marine Corps veteran living with post-traumatic stress disorder, and his faithful service dog Charlie, a Belgian Malinois. One day, they are humiliated in a restaurant because of the dog's presence, but later the community, after learning about Charlie's military background, recognizes his heroism and apologizes. And the restaurant changes its policy to support veterans. Charlie receives an honorary award for his service, becomes a symbol of loyalty and support, and together with Jack, becomes the center of the local veterans community. Welcome to my channel. They say the world moves on, whether you're ready or not. I learned that the hard way. My name's Jack Callahan, retired gunnery sergeant, United States Marine Corps. I'm 64 years old, with silver stubble on my chin and a limp that always announces me before I round a corner. Folks say my eyes look like they've seen ghosts. Maybe they have. Maybe they still do. These days, I live in a quiet corner of Asheville, North Carolina. I rent a small house with creaky floors and a front porch that smells like pine and old memories. But I don't live there alone. My roommate, best friend, and lifeline is Charlie. Charlie's a 6-year-old Belgian Malinois with the kind of focus most people only dream about. His vest says service dog, do not distract, though I've lost count of how many folks think it's just a cute accessory. Charlie isn't just some well-trained pet. He's the reason I can walk into grocery stores and crowded diners without collapsing in a storm of my own past. He senses it before I do, before the tightness in my chest, before the shaking hands. When it creeps up, he leans in against my leg, grounding me. Sometimes he'll nudge my hand, steady as a heartbeat. It's like he can sniff out the flashbacks before they bloom. That Tuesday started like any other. Weather was mild for a North Carolina fall, leaves just beginning to turn gold around the edges. I decided to treat myself to lunch. There's this little seafood spot downtown called the Blue Ridge Catch. Locals love it. Noisy, but if you ask for the booth by the window, it's quiet enough to breathe. Charlie and I made our way down there. He rode shotgun, alert but calm. Always calm. Parking was tight, but I found a spot along the curb and limped my way inside. The place smelled like grilled salmon and salt. Reminded me of the time we bivouacked near the coast in Okinawa before things got loud. A college-aged hostess greeted me with a well-practiced smile. Just one. Two, actually, I said, nodding to Charlie. Her smile faltered just for a split second, like I dropped something offensive on her shoes. Oh, okay. I'll seat you by the corner. Appreciate it, I said, and followed her to the booth. Charlie settled beneath the table, a shadow at my feet. He always positioned himself so that he could watch both me and the door. Old habits, his and mine. I just started looking over the lunch specials, grilled trout, crab bisque, the usual, when the waitress arrived. Blonde, maybe mid-20s, trying to hide the way her eyes flicked to Charlie. She poured me water, handed me a menu, and vanished like I'd ordered the salmon and a side of judgment. Then, 3 minutes later, he showed up. A guy in a polo shirt with a manager's badge clipped to his collar. Late 30s, maybe. Looked like the kind of guy who used "sir" only when he was mad. "Sir, I'm afraid we have a strict no pets policy," he said, just loud enough for the nearest tables to pause mid-conversation. Charlie didn't move. Neither did I. "He's not a pet," I replied. "Calm. He's a medical service dog. Registered under the ADA. I pulled my wallet slowly and showed him Charlie's certification card. The manager didn't even glance at it. I understand, but health codes are health codes. We've had complaints from other guests. From a table across the aisle, a woman with oversized sunglasses and a fake tan scoffed. "Exactly. A dog is a dog," she muttered. "Even if it wears a vest." I looked down at Charlie. Still steady. Still silent. The room buzzed with unspoken opinions. I could feel the weight of every sideways glance. There was a time, in another place, when being watched meant you were seconds from action. That tension? It never really leaves your skin. "This dog has saved my life more times than I can count," I said, looking the manager square in the eye. "He's pulled me out of episodes where I didn't even know who I was. So no, I won't be leaving him out on the sidewalk for the comfort of people who wouldn't last 10 minutes inside my head." He crossed his arms. "Then you know what needs to happen." I stood slowly. No shouting. No cussing. Just disappointment. Charlie rose with me, precise, practiced, part of me. And together, we walked out. No one said a word. Not the hostess. Not the waitress. Not the table of tourists peeking over their menus. Just eyes. Always the eyes. We crossed the street to a public bench beneath a sugar maple tree. I sat down, pulled a peanut butter sandwich from my jacket pocket, and split it in half. Not exactly what you were promised, boy, I murmured, offering a chunk to Charlie. He took it gently, his gaze never leaving mine. Always watching. Always ready. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. Cars passed. People passed. But in that moment, it was just me and the only soul in this town who really knew me. I reached into my wallet again, this time for a photograph. A snapshot, yellowed with time, protected by cracked plastic. It was from Kandahar, 2009. I was on a stretcher, bleeding and half-conscious. Charlie, years younger, coat still rich and dark, stood beside me, his vest shredded, his eyes laser-focused. Some scars you wear on the outside. Others hide behind a smile and polite silence. Charlie leaned his head on my knee, just like he had that night in the dust and blood and fire. No command needed. He just knew. He always knows. We sat on that bench for a while, watching traffic move along Main Street like nothing had happened. Charlie gnawed at his sandwich slowly, methodically. A couple passed us, maybe in their 70s, bundled in fall jackets and walking arm in arm. The woman gave me a tight smile, not unkind, but cautious. Her partner offered a slight nod, something between respect and pity. Then they kept walking. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. People these days are either afraid to get involved or don't know how. And you get used to that. A group of college kids lingered near the corner, the kind that wear beanies year-round and use phrases like late capitalism like seasoning. One of them had his phone out, pretending to text, but he kept glancing our way. The guy beside him laughed, low and mean. Old dude thinks his therapy dog's a Navy SEAL, he chuckled. The girl in the group smirked. Probably one of those PTSD cases. My cousin has anxiety and a goldfish. Should he get a vest too? I heard it all. The mocking, the dismissiveness. I didn't flinch. Didn't even look up. That's the trick. If you don't feed the wolves, eventually they move on. Charlie's ears flicked, but he stayed at ease. That dog's more professional than half the officers I served with. Hell, probably more than me. I rubbed the ache in my leg. Some days it felt like a dull throb, others like a live wire twisting down the bone. We shared that wound, Charlie and I, as same IED blast outside Sanjin. He caught shrapnel in his left flank trying to get to me, wouldn't leave my side until they sedated him. He's been with me ever since. I pulled out his pill bottle. Anti-inflammatories and mild pain meds, crushed into a chewable hidden in a beef jerky treat. Charlie took it with a nuzzle of my hand. I scratched behind his ears. We're still standing, bud, I whispered. Let them laugh. Across the street, the restaurant's windows glared like watching eyes. I could still see the manager, pacing near the host stand. Probably dealing with the lunchtime rush, moving on with his day, never thinking twice about what he did. But then something caught my eye. 5 men stepped through the entrance. Not casually. Not like they were here for crab cakes and coleslaw. They came in tight formation, I scanning the room like they were clearing it. Each one wore the dress blues of the United States Marine Corps. Charlie sat up instantly. Alert, not anxious. One of the Marines had silver trim on his shoulders and CPT McIntyre stitched above his heart. My heart stuttered. It couldn't be. He walked to the counter with the precision of someone who'd spent a career drilling footsteps into muscle memory. A young hostess stared up at him like he'd walked in from a war movie. Excuse me, he said, voice clear but polite. I'm looking for a man named Jack Callahan. He would have been here earlier, accompanied by a Belgian Malinois service dog named Charlie. The hostess looked panicked. Her eyes darted toward the back office. The same manager, David or Darren or whatever it was, came out, face pale. They left a couple hours ago, he stammered. There was some confusion about our pet policy. McIntyre didn't say a word, just stood there, taking in the whole scene. The diners, the staff, the awkward silence. Then he stepped forward. Jack Callahan, he said to the whole restaurant, not just the manager, saved the lives of 3 men in Bravo Company during an ambush in Helmand. His dog, Sergeant Charlie, yes, Sergeant, is decorated for combat duty and has more confirmed medical assists than most field medics I've served with. You could have heard a pin drop. McIntyre reached into his coat and placed a framed photo on the host stand. It showed me, younger, arms slung around my fire team, and Charlie, proud and wild-eyed, sitting front and center. Across the bottom were the words, "Brotherhood doesn't end at discharge." We came here to buy him lunch, McIntyre said. But we also came to remind everyone that service doesn't end just because you can't see the uniform. Phones were already out. The same diners who had stared at us when we were walked out now held up their devices like they were filming a parade. The woman in the sunglasses who'd called Charlie just a dog looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. The manager cleared his throat. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said. "No," McIntyre replied, gaze like steel. "There's been a failure of decency." He didn't yell, didn't raise a fist. That's the thing about real authority. It whispers while everyone else shouts. Before they left, one of the Marines handed the photo to the hostess. "Hang it somewhere people can see," he said. Then they walked out. From across the street, I watched it all. Charlie stayed leaned into my leg, unmoving, like a statue built for loyalty. A few minutes later, the door to the restaurant opened again. A young woman, our waitress, hurried across the crosswalk, clutching a paper takeout box in both hands. She stopped in front of me, cheeks flushed. I brought this," she said. "Salmon special, side of sweet potato fries." And a note. "From all of us." I looked at the box, then at her. "You didn't have to," I said. "I know," she replied. "But we should have." I took the box. The note was handwritten. 6 words. "We were wrong. Please come back." I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just nodded. "Thank you," I said. As she turned to go, I leaned toward Charlie. "What do you think, partner?" I whispered. "Do we give him another shot?" His tail wagged once, just once. Measured. Considered. Like a soldier weighing a ceasefire. We didn't go back right away. I let a few days pass. I'd seen enough in my life to know the difference between guilt and change. And while I appreciated the gesture, hell, it meant a lot. I needed time. Time to see if that young woman's courage could ripple outward. If her apology carried any real weight. Charlie and I kept to our routines. Morning walks along the French Broad River. Visits to the local VFW post, where I'd nurse a cup of coffee for an hour, talking to other ghosts in skin. Some days were better than others. On the bad ones, Charlie didn't leave my side for a second. If I didn't open my mouth, neither did he. On the 5th day, we returned to the Blue Ridge Catch. I didn't call ahead. Didn't want a reservation. I wanted to walk through the door like any other human being, not a PR stunt wrapped in patriotism. We stepped through the front entrance around 2:30, just after the lunch rush. The place looked different. A new sign hung in the window. "We proudly welcome all veterans and their service companions." Inside, near the hostess stand, the photo McIntyre had brought now hung in a walnut frame. Someone had added another picture beneath it. Charlie in his gear, crouched behind a blast wall, dust swirling around him. I hadn't seen that shot in years. It must have come from someone in our unit's archives. And below it all, a brass plaque read, "Service knows no species. Loyalty knows no compromise." The same hostess who'd seated me the first time blinked in recognition. This time, she didn't hesitate. "Welcome back, Mr. Callahan. Your table's waiting." We were led to the corner booth by the window, the same one. But now it held something extra, a small American flag in a vase and a nameplate that read, "Reserved for Jack and Charlie, Bravo team, never forgotten." Charlie eased under the table like he'd never left. I slid into the seat and let the silence wrap around me. Not the kind of silence that comes from tension, but the good kind. The kind that says, "You're safe here." Our young waitress reappeared a few minutes later, smiling cautiously. Her name tag read Emily. I hadn't noticed it before. "I'm really glad you came back," she said. I just nodded. "So am I." She placed a menu down, but I handed it back. "Surprise me." That broke the tension. Her smile became real, like a curtain lifting. "You got it." While I waited, I glanced around the dining room. People were different this time. Or maybe just how they looked at me. One guy, probably in his 30s, gave a subtle nod from his table. A mother with a little boy whispered something in his ear, and the kid smiled at Charlie, then quickly looked away, embarrassed. The food arrived fast. Grilled rainbow trout, side of collards, cornbread still steaming. Charlie got his usual, grilled chicken breast cut into bite-sized pieces, no seasoning. I always appreciated that they asked before adding anything. Not every stomach's built for blackened spices, especially his. Midway through the meal, a man in his early 20s approached our table. Clean cut, college sweatshirt. His hands trembled just a bit as he stood there holding his phone. Not up, not recording. Just holding it like an awkward offering. "Sir," he said. I wanted to apologize. I set down my fork and looked up. He shifted on his feet. "I was one of the guys outside the other day, making comments. Joking about service dogs. PTSD. All that. He swallowed hard. I deleted the video. I shouldn't have said what I did. And I'm not here because someone told me to. I'm here because my brother just enlisted. He ships out in January. His voice cracked a little. I want people to treat him better than I treated you. That silence returned. The good kind. The heavy kind. I stood, slowly, and held out my hand. Then be that person now, I said. For him. For yourself. For someone else next time. He shook my hand. Not like a politician. Like a man trying to mean something. He left without another word. Emily brought pie without asking. Pecan, my favorite. I wondered how she knew, then remembered the takeout box from that day on the bench. On the house, she said. Always, if you sit at this table. Later that evening, as the shadows stretched long across the sidewalks and the hum of city life softened into twilight, Charlie and I sat on our porch. The sky over Asheville burned orange and violet like it was trying to outrun the night. Charlie lay beside my chair, head on my boot, chest rising slow and steady. I reached into my coat and pulled out two things, my unit coin from Bravo Company and the old photograph. Me on that stretcher, Charlie beside me. I flipped the coin through my fingers, the way I used to flip a Zippo lighter during deployments. That rhythmic clink, the weight of metal, it settled my thoughts. I think we made our point, buddy, I said. Charlie let out a soft woof, just once. He always knows when to answer. A week passed. Charlie and I became regulars again at the Blue Ridge Catch. Always in that corner booth. Always greeted with nods or a handshake or, from the new hostess, a quiet, thank you both. It wasn't pity, they'd moved past that. It was something better. Something rarer. Respect. The plaque stayed on the table, though Charlie couldn't read it. Didn't need to. The way he sat at attention whenever someone passed our booth, head high and ears flicking toward voices, said enough. He knew. He always did. Every now and then, folks would stop by our table just to talk. Veterans mostly. Some in wheelchairs, some walking tall, others with eyes that scanned the room like mine did, measuring exits, watching shadows. We didn't need to say much to know each other. One afternoon, a man named Travis stopped by. Big guy, mid-40s, built like a boulder but gentle in his words. He told me he'd served in Fallujah too, different battalion, but remembered hearing about the Malinois that dragged his handler out of a collapsed command post. That was you too, right? He asked, his voice low with awe. I gave a small nod. Heard the dog refused to leave even after the second blast. That true. Charlie looked up at me like he was waiting for me to brag. He stayed, I said. That's all that matters. That night, back home, I dug through the old army chest at the foot of my bed. Hadn't opened it in years. Dust clung to the corners, the metal hinges stiff with time. Inside was a chaos of military patches, a rusted K-bar, half a field journal, and a small velvet box. I opened it. Charlie lifted his head, ears perked. Inside the box was a medal I'd almost forgotten about, the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation with Valor. It wasn't the highest I'd received, but it meant something personal. They'd pinned it on me while I was in the hospital, burnt, half-conscious, full of morphine. I barely remembered the ceremony. Beside it was something rarer, a laminated card stating that Charlie had been awarded an honorary citation by the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Brigade. Technically, dogs can't hold rank. But if they could, Charlie would have outranked half the brass that rotated in and out of that sandbox. I placed the medal on the coffee table, along with the card. Charlie patted over and sniffed them both, then sat beside me, leaning gently against my leg. You remember that day? I asked. He blinked slowly, leaned harder into me. We both remembered. The heat, the smoke, the second explosion, the dust so thick it turned everything gray. And then Charlie, cut, limping, bleeding from his flank, finding me under the rubble, whining like a siren until someone followed the sound. He had no rank, no uniform, no voice, but he found me when I was buried and broke and barely breathing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how many medals I'd been given over the years, and how few people ever saw them. How most of what Charlie had done lived in reports sealed away in folders on desks 1,000 miles from where he now limped to the water bowl. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would. I called Captain McIntyre. Took me a few tries to get through. I left a message, not expecting a call back. But by noon, my phone buzzed. His voice, sharp and familiar, filled the line like it had been just yesterday we were in briefing rooms instead of retirement. "Jack," he said, "been hoping you'd reach out." We talked. For an hour. Maybe more. About Charlie. About Helmand. About the ones who made it back and the ones who didn't. When I mentioned the way the restaurant had turned around, the sign, the plaque, the new policy, he went quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. "We're coming through next month. Training rotation up near Boone. I'll bring the guys. Maybe it's time we honored Charlie properly." I tried to wave it off. "He's just a dog, James." "No," McIntyre said. "He's not. You both deserve a moment. And we'll make sure he gets it." 3 weeks later, it happened. Veterans from 3 counties gathered outside the Blue Ridge Cache. The local VFW put up flags along the street. An elementary school class had drawn pictures of service animals, taping them to the windows. One said, in crayon letters, "Thank you, Charlie, the brave dog." Charlie wore his vest, but this time there was a new patch sewn on. "Sergeant, Bravo Unit, retired." He stood beside me at attention as Captain McIntyre read a citation aloud. He used words like heroism and valor under fire. I tried not to look down. My throat was already tight. Then they placed a medal around Charlie's neck. An honorary piece, custom-made. Gold with a paw print in the center, ringed by 13 stars. Engraved on the back were 6 words. "For loyalty beyond the call of duty." Charlie didn't move a muscle. Just blinked and sat proudly beside me. The applause was thunderous. But I swear he only wagged his tail once, as if to say, "Mission acknowledged." That night, Charlie and I sat on the porch again. The medal glinted faintly on his chest in the dusk light. "You deserve this," I told him. He licked my hand once, then rested his head on my lap. No bark. No sound. Just presence. Always presence. After the ceremony, life didn't exactly go back to normal, but it settled into something better. Familiar, yes, but with this new current of understanding in the air. The kind you don't talk about out loud, not really, but you feel it when people meet your eyes instead of avoiding them. We still sat in that same booth at the Blue Ridge Cache. Still ordered the trout or the shrimp po' boys. Still drank black coffee and watched the world turn. But now there was something different in the way folks spoke to me. Not louder. Not more frequent. Just less guarded. One morning, a woman in her 40s stopped by our table. She wore a faded army-strong hoodie and had that look in her eyes, like she'd fought her own kind of war. "My dad served in Korea," she said, her voice tight. "He never talked about it. But he had a dog. Called it Butch. Swore that dog knew when he was about to have a nightmare before he did." She pointed at Charlie. "I think you got your own Butch." I smiled and patted Charlie's side. "Yeah, only smarter." She laughed through glassy eyes, then moved on. A few days later, a group of local kids on a field trip came in. They sat near the window, coloring placemats and sipping chocolate milk through red straws. One of them, a boy with bright blue glasses and wild curls, got up and walked over to our booth. Charlie perked up, but stayed down. The boy didn't say anything at first, just stared. Then he asked, "Can I thank him?" I looked at his teacher. She nodded gently from across the room. I turned back to the boy and said, "Go ahead. Just keep your voice soft." The kid knelt beside Charlie, who blinked at him with the calm patience of 1,000 hours in noisy, unpredictable places. "Thank you, Charlie," the boy whispered, "for keeping him safe." Then he stood up and ran back to his class. Charlie didn't move for a full minute. Then he wagged his tail, just once. The waitress, Emily, caught me watching and smiled. "You've got a fan club," she said. That evening, I opened the old lockbox again. Not for medals this time. Not for documents or faded maps of places that no longer existed. I pulled out a coin. Not a unit coin. Not official military issue. Just a simple copper coin with rough engraving on one side. You stood between me and the fire. McIntyre had given it to me the day I rotated stateside for good. No press, no speeches. Just a firm handshake, a look in the eye, and that coin dropped into my palm. I never asked where he had it made. The other side was blank. I liked it that way. It left room for the parts we didn't say out loud. That coin stayed in my front pocket from the day I left the Corps until the day I met Charlie. When I was issued his paperwork, trained with him for weeks, and felt that strange, quiet bond grow strong as steel, I added something new to the coin, a shallow notch, carved with my pocket knife, just behind the engraving, to mark that I wasn't alone anymore. Some days, I'd flip it in my fingers while I waited for a storm to pass, literal or otherwise. Other days, I just kept it close, no reason needed. That coin had weight, but it wasn't the metal. It was the history. And now, well, Charlie had history too. One day, about a month after the ceremony, something happened that I didn't expect. The old restaurant manager, the one who'd kicked us out, walked into the Blue Ridge catch. He didn't wear his old badge. Didn't even wear his old face, in a way. His posture was different. Shoulders rounded. Eyes softer. A little less certain of his place in the world. He didn't approach our table. Just ordered coffee, sat by the door, and stared out the window like he was trying to find the right words in the sidewalk cracks. Emily told me later he'd resigned the day after the Marines came. Said he left a note for the owner. "Thank you for teaching me what law books couldn't. Respect isn't about following rules. It's about recognizing worth." The new owner, young woman, sharp eyes, happened to be the daughter of a Vietnam vet. I didn't know that until she came over and shook my hand one afternoon. My dad never talked about his service, she said. But he'd have loved this place now. Especially this table. She started hosting monthly dinners for local veterans. Told their stories. Invited families. Showed kids what service looked like when it limped through the door on 4 legs and sat down without needing to prove anything. Charlie and I were at every one of those dinners. Some nights we just listened. Other nights I spoke. Briefly. Just a memory here and there. I'd always end the same way. This dog didn't save me from war. He saved me from what came after. And every time I said it, Charlie would glance up like he knew I was talking about him. Because he did. He always did. Winter crept into Asheville quietly. Leaves turned brittle, breath fogged in the air, and Charlie started limping more noticeably. His old injury, the shrapnel wound from Helmand, flared up in the cold. We adjusted. Slower walks. Softer beds. But he never missed a beat when it came to me. He still pressed against my leg when my breathing shifted. Still leaned into my side when the noise in my head got too loud. One afternoon, as we walked past the bakery on Chestnut Street, a car backfired near the corner. Loud. Sharp. Too familiar. I froze. The air shrank. Everything tilted just slightly off. Before I could fall back into that sandstorm of memory, Charlie moved. He leaned hard into my thigh, tail stiff, eyes on mine. No bark. No panic. Just pressure, steady and grounding. And I breathed. Slowly. In. Out. And the world came back. People nearby didn't stare. Not anymore. They saw Charlie work and gave us space, not from discomfort, but from respect. That night, as we sat on the porch, the radio played low from the kitchen. I rubbed Charlie's side gently, avoiding the scar. "You're getting older," I said quietly. "So am I." He blinked at me, unmoved by such truths. The mission goes on. A few days later, a package arrived. It was from McIntyre's unit. Inside, a framed coin, the same unit challenge coin I carried, and a note. For Sergeant Charlie. Still on duty. Still saving lives. I hung it above the front door, next to my old campaign medals. Right where folks could see it on the way in or out. He didn't need awards. But people needed reminders. That some heroes don't wear boots. They wear fur. A few weeks later, we had another moment, the kind that sneaks up on you. Charlie and I were eating at the Blue Ridge catch. Quiet afternoon, not many tables filled. A couple of high school kids walked in, one of them, I recognized. He was the one who'd filmed us outside that first day, laughing with his buddies. He didn't see me at first. But when he did, he stopped mid-step. You could see the internal battle play across his face. Then he did something that surprised me. He walked over. "Sir," he said, voice low, "I just wanted to say I was wrong. I've thought about it a lot. I deleted the video. My brother's in boot camp now, and I get it. I didn't back then, but I do now." I nodded. Didn't smile. Just said, "Then keep getting it." He looked at Charlie. "Is he still working?" "He always will," I said. "Until he can't." The kid nodded, eyes on the plaque at our table. Then left. Didn't order food. Didn't need to. Later that night, Charlie had a nightmare. Happens sometimes. His legs twitch. He whines a low, mournful sound. I knelt beside him, hand on his chest. "It's okay, boy. I'm here." His eyes opened, wide and alert. He stared at me like he wasn't sure what world he was in. I knew that feeling. "Rest," I whispered. "I've got you this time." And slowly, he settled. That's the thing about loyalty. It's not about always being strong. It's about taking turns. A month passed. Then came the call. Captain McIntyre's voice was calm but clipped. He was deploying again. Training exercise turned real-world op. I wanted to stop by before we ship out, he said. Hand something off. The next day, he showed up at the Blue Ridge catch with 4 other Marines. All in uniform. No fanfare. Just presents. He handed me a small box. Inside was a unit coin, different than mine. This one had Bravo Company's full roster etched around the edge. In the center, a raised paw print. We only made one, he said. For Charlie. I held it in my hand. Heavy for its size. He never took a day off, McIntyre added. You too. You remind us what the job really means. I didn't trust my voice, so I just nodded. As they left, he saluted, not to me, but to Charlie. And Charlie, calm, stiff from the cold, gave a slow tail wag. Nothing flashy. Just acknowledgement. That coin stays on the shelf now, next to Charlie's medal and the framed photo. A corner of my living room that means more than any certificate ever could. Later that night, I found Charlie watching me from the foot of the bed. His eyes, cloudy with age now, still sharp with recognition. We're not done, I told him. Not yet. And he blinked once. Agreed. Winter deepened. Charlie moved slower now. Stairs took effort. His breath came with a slight wheeze after long walks, and sometimes he didn't rise at the first call. But his eyes never changed. Still tracking me. Still guarding. One cold Tuesday, we sat in our usual booth. Emily brought his grilled chicken in a warm dish and placed a blanket on the floor beneath the table. Little extra comfort, she said. Charlie laid down without a sound. We were halfway through the meal when a car backfired again, sharp, loud, too close. I tensed. My fork dropped. My hands trembled. Charlie rose slowly and leaned into my leg. Even tired. Even hurting. He still remembered. Emily saw. She didn't panic. Didn't come rushing over. She just quietly stepped between our table and the rest of the restaurant, shielding us from view. The other diners looked away, not out of shame, but out of respect. Letting us be. Letting us breathe. That's the kind of silence that matters. The kind that says, you're not alone. We see you. By the time I'd steadied again, Charlie had returned to his place under the table, breathing slow, eyes watching the door. Later that evening, we sat on the porch. He curled beside me, his head on my boot. I looked down at him. You're tired, I know. He didn't move. I don't know what I'll do without you, I said. The wind whispered through the pine trees. A long pause stretched between us. But then, his tail thumped once. Soft. Like he was saying, not yet. Still here. Spring came late that year. The day Charlie didn't get up, the sky was clear. Bluebird bright. Birds chirping like they'd waited all winter for this song. He lay curled at the foot of my bed, still and peaceful. No pain. No fear. Just gone. I sat beside him for a long time. My hand rested on his flank, now still. No breath. No heartbeat. Just warmth fading. I didn't cry. Not right away. Marines are trained to process, not panic. But the hole in my chest was instant. And deep. I wrapped him in the flag from our old unit, the one McIntyre had given me years ago. Not for show. For meaning. That morning, I drove him to the same vet clinic where he'd received his first shots before deployment. They knew who he was. They didn't charge me. Didn't even ask for my card. A week later, we held a small ceremony outside the Blue Ridge catch. Emily organized it. McIntyre sent a letter from overseas. The town mayor showed up. Kids from the local school read thank you notes they'd written in class. One little girl said, Charlie was the bravest dog in the world because he helped carry invisible things. I couldn't have said it better myself. They planted a dogwood tree near our bench across the street from the restaurant. Underneath, a bronze plaque. In honor of Sergeant Charlie, a soldier's soldier. Always on watch. That night, the porch felt empty, but not hollow. Because Charlie's presence, it wasn't just to dogs. It was a reminder that loyalty is weight. That service doesn't require words. And that sometimes, the greatest hero doesn't carry a gun, but waits quietly beside you, ready when the storm comes. I still carry the photo. Still flip the coin in my pocket. Still sit in our booth. Some days, folks stop and talk. Some days, I just sip coffee and watch the door. And every once in a while, a dog walks invested, alert, calm, and I feel it. That quiet connection. That unspoken salute between soldiers who never stopped serving. Charlie's gone.